Hello and welcome to another episode of the 21st Century Work-Life Podcast, where we talk about how the world of work and our attitudes to work are changing. My name is Pilar Orti, and you can find out about everything we do over at virtualnotdistant.com. And today's another guest episode with a guest I haven't met before. So I'm as curious as you are, listeners, to know more about him, more about his story. As we've been doing recently, dear guest, would you like to say hello to our listeners?
Hey, Pilar. Yeah, my name's Doug, and I'm the founder of Marketing Pros and Kalium.
Is it Doug Haynes, just in case anyone wants to Google you straight away?
Yeah, Doug Haynes, Haines.
Excellent. So as you say, you're the founder of Kalium and Marketing Pros. I'm interested in especially how Marketing Pros came about, but I have a feeling that Marketing Pros wouldn't exist without Kalium because there's a kind of evolution there. Tell us about how it all started.
Yes, sure. So Kalium is a search marketing agency based here in the UK, and coming out of COVID, we were just looking at different ways to resource the business. We were doing quite well from a kind of sales perspective, but just struggling a lot to resource staffing. We kind of tried a lot of different approaches. None of it was that effective. You know, all of the freelancing platforms, using recruiters. And I had a client who one of their team was from South Africa and introduced me to their sister. And she was actually just finishing a master's degree in Cape Town. And we just got chatting about how she could help find some people to help me run the business, kind of researchers and content writers and analysts, that sort of thing. That worked really well. We found a lot of excellent people through her network. And so that kind of grew Kalium over the next 18 months, 2 years. You know, we took that from, no people in South Africa to, I think by that point we had sort of 25 full-time and then freelancers. So we just built the whole infrastructure in that region, including an office and a legal entity, all of that kind of stuff.
When you were looking for people, was it just you and someone else? Did you have a co-founder? How many of you were there? And were you working physically together or apart?
Yeah, so we had myself and then 3 other people in the UK, all working remotely. So it's a fairly small business at that stage, which is why we were creaking at the seams in terms of resourcing and delivery.
This is how you then grew it to people in South Africa. And you said, did you have an office? Was there an office there for them in South Africa?
Yeah, so over the first 2 years, we started off remotely. And then after about 18 months, we got an office location in Cape Town in South Africa where the team, they work hybrid. So they go in for like 2 days a week and then they work 3 days a week from home.
But you are still in London?
Yeah, so there's me and a couple of other guys still here in the UK, but like 95% of the team and the work happens in South Africa.
And how does it feel? Because for me, it would be very weird. And I think this is the experience of many people as well, is that you are physically away from them, but they're all seeing each other. And how does it feel having your team together somewhere else?
Yeah, it is difficult, I have to say. I mean, I go there maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So I go there a little bit. But it is strange that I think in that scenario, if the whole company is remote, I guess it's different. But if you've got like one region like we have, I think what I've learned is that you've got to have management there. Trying to manage it remotely is impossible because there's just so much like meta conversation, relationships, all of that stuff that happens that you're not aware of. So you can't be an effective MD remotely if everyone else is in one place. So it is strange, and the hack to make it work is you've got to have people there that can kind of lead day to day.
So what is your role in the business so that you have been able to almost delegate the management of the people?
So in that agency, my role has become kind of financial oversight. So just making sure that we've got the right metrics in place and the right financial infrastructure and sales. They're the 2 primary things that I'll work on. So, we do have people that do those things, but in terms of my time, we'll have management meetings and I'll jump on with sales. But in terms of delivery, we've got to a scenario now where I'm not involved. Like 0% of my time is on actually kind of delivering the product and the service.
I'm just wondering as well how the physical location of the different people then impacted what you were doing and how you choose what to do as well. Great. So I suppose, though, that we left your story at the point where you sourced everyone, you've got now a team. And then if we're starting to look at Marketing Pros, what happened then?
We sort of found that there was just a lot of supply of people in the region. But as one small agency that did a very niche thing, we couldn't employ the vast majority of these people. So a few people just came to us and said, you've hired people in South Africa, can you help us do the same? And Olivia and myself just thought, maybe there's a business here as well. Maybe we can help these other companies access some of these people. And that's how we got started. Just initially placing the odd person here and there just to help out a business on a kind of part-time basis. And it worked well, and we just kind of grew it from there.
And I was looking around in your website, and it has this, when it talks about the origin story, it says, it all started on Slack, which I think is a great headline, which drew my eye. So does that mean that you were talking to your clients already by then on Slack? Is Slack something you were using to communicate with your clients?
Yeah, we do use Slack a lot. For client comms, we find that it's way better than email, but also internally, particularly with these kind of... So we have a Calium for agency, we have an internal Slack and client work, but also Marketing Pros, it's a key part of that business, because essentially we've got people that are based in South Africa working for companies in the UK, the US mainly. And what we found is that if they have like a community to go to, not just physical, but in Slack, that kind of helps a lot. So yeah, that tool is fundamental to our business in quite a few different ways, actually.
So you decided you were going to help companies. You knew that the talent was there in South Africa. What happened next? Take us through a little bit of the detail of how you started to gather those people, I suppose, and then to look for clients for them.
We started off looking on the client side and trying to go to companies and say, look, there's all of this talent in South Africa. We'll help you go and find some. And that sort of worked okay. People would say, we need this or we need this. And we would kind of go to our networks and find those people. What we've learned over the last kind of 2 or 3 years doing this is that it's way better to go the other way, to find the people, find really, really good talent. Once we have the talent, we can then approach companies with, look, we've got somebody we think would be really good for you. Now, of course, you can't have no clients. So you're trying to build a marketplace where you've got some clients and some talent, and you're trying to grow it at the same time. But from our perspective, we've found a lot better success if we know we've got a really, really good person. Like if you give me 200 really good people, somehow we can get them placed. Like we will find a way to do it, because ultimately people want great people. But if I didn't have the good people and 200 companies came to me and said, go and find 200 people, like you can't just switch that on. It's harder to find the people, way harder. So that's what we have found, is just we spend most of our time going, okay, like where are the good people and how can we create an environment that works for them so we can, help move their career forward. And that's really what the business has become. More like a talent agency than a recruitment company.
I want to hear more about how you're building that, sustaining that. You talked about community, both in person and in Slack. So hold that thought. But I'm sure some of the listeners are thinking, as I am, the fact that people are based in South Africa, has this been a selling point, a hindrance, or it hasn't made a difference?
We have clients essentially in the UK and the US is our two main markets. And those two markets have very different understanding of South Africa. So there's tons of South Africans, as I'm sure you know, in London, in the UK, and a lot of cultural ties. So when we're talking to companies in the UK, there's a fairly clear understanding. They understand South Africa, they understand the kind of people that come to South Africa from the UK, and it's a lot, there's not as much of a hurdle to get over. Once we're selling in the US, they have generally way less understanding of South Africa as a region. They have way less understanding of what it's like, the kind of people that come from the region. So I would say the two markets are different. Generally speaking, even in the UK, there's a fairly low appreciation of the kind of the quality. So what we find is that the quality is easily equivalent to if not better than the UK, and the same in the US as well. There's not as much of it, but in terms of, there are tens of thousands of incredibly competent people that have worked internationally and have got really good education. So there's definitely a barrier to get over in terms of these people are really, really good, because some people will put the region on a shelf of like, you know, international outsourcing, and they'll just kind of go, okay, this is a way to save money.
Yeah.
It is a way to save money. We save a lot. It's way cheaper, but it's not like ridiculously cheap compared to some of these other regions, but it's really just very much like for like quality is a really good saving.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was wondering, what the perception was as well. And not knowing very much about the region, I mean, I do have a friend who is South African but lives in Europe, and I did know someone, but I don't know much about the region, or specifically maybe around Cape Town. Why do you think there are so many people available, and also what is your interest in having found that at the beginning of staying there? What is it, do you think there's so many? It's because we're talking mainly about marketing professionals, is this right? Yeah.
Yeah, we do, you know, marketing, we specialize, but this model would work for other professions, as most other professions as well. So there's a lot of really good developers, for example. There's a lot of really, really good finance people. So we're marketing specific, but it works for other niches. What was the question, sorry, Pilar?
Yeah. The question was why is there so much talent available? That's one, and also why do you keep tapping into that?
Yeah, there's kind of multiple reasons. I think the local job market's not great. The South African economy is generally not great for various reasons. It's kind of cut off a little bit from the rest of the world, and the typical model for a well-educated, you know, South African is to travel internationally. So, you know, they'll move to the UK, or they'll move to the Middle East, or sometimes even like New Zealand, Australia to kind of get work. But for obvious reasons, like a lot of people just do not want to do that. So they're starting to kind of tap into this international market, but it's obviously difficult for the fact that, you know, people don't necessarily think of South Africa. People don't maybe appreciate the quality. Generally, just getting remote jobs is hard. So there's a ton of reasons why people want to stay in South Africa. Like it's a beautiful country. There's a lot of, you know, people have family ties, that kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give that talent a route into these international markets so they can sort of stay locally if they don't want to move. Why do we keep doing it? I do think it's the best region in the world in terms of price, quality, delta. Nothing, in my opinion, comes remotely close to it for particular types of roles. So for marketing roles, which tend to be quite people-focused, high necessity for communication skills, like it really helps to be just great with people and relationship building. And that's what you get in South Africa. And you also get very strong cultural alignment with like the West, with the US and with the UK. And that kind of helps as well. So for more like hardcore technical roles, you can get great people in South Africa, but there's maybe not such a difference between a South Africa and another region where they've got amazing kind of developers, for example.
Yeah, that's great. And it's always so difficult to know where to look for people who are great people. And so I didn't know that. I didn't know that, for example, that would be like one of the characteristics of that cohort. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
nice.
you know, it's incredibly hard anywhere, as you know, to find these people that can, you know, in our agency, I wouldn't say the most important people, but critical people are the kind of client-facing, managing that relationship. And that these are kind of soft skills that it's very hard to test for. And it's very hard to kind of acquire those skills, particularly in like a remote setting. But once you find those people that can kind of own a project, that can deal with difficult client situations, that can do all of those things, like it just completely changed the trajectory of our agency to be able to find those people at a rate that isn't ridiculous. Like we're talking about, to get someone of equivalent quality, you know, it might be 70, 80, 90,000 a year in the UK. You know, this price is, for someone of that quality is considerably less. And that just helps so much. But yeah, the region is exceptional for that kind of like communication. And when we talk to companies that come to us, that's what they want. They're like, we're tired of micromanaging our staff. We're tired of just giving them a list. We're tired of, you know, them not working things out. If someone's telling me that on like a sales call, that I'm like, okay, we can help you. If someone's got a list of very specific technical things they need done, we can help with that. But it's, I'm not like, this is an obvious absolute slam dunk, we're the right place for you. But anywhere where they want someone to solve problems and work things out, I feel like, you're in the right place.
Oh, that's very unique. Is a great characteristic to be offering. So my next question has to be then, how do you go about finding those people and bringing them in when, as I understand, sometimes the work might not be immediately there ready for them? Is that right?
Yeah, so it's definitely a little bit of a kind of marketplace challenge. We do it in a few ways. So in terms of finding people, we're at the stage now where we have quite a lot of, we're part of a lot of groups. So in terms of top of funnel, we'll use Facebook, we'll go on to WhatsApp groups. We know all the different universities. We'll just kind of go top of funnel that way. Once we kind of filter that down into finding someone, we've either got a specific role that we're recruiting for, which is kind of a little bit easier because we can say, look, there's this role that we think you're perfect for. If we don't have a role, it's more the sale is, look, we've got access to this international market. If you kind of join our community, you get the Slack group, you get the community, you get all of the access to the job openings that we're going out spending all that time finding. So you're not necessarily going in a job on day one, but you have access to all of these jobs, not just today, but forever. And often we're sort of headhunting people that are in a role and they're thinking about moving, but they don't want to move today. So we're like, well, cool, come through our process, get into the community, and then we're getting all of this incoming job traffic and we're just kind of triaging that to see if there's a fit. So we're just trying to, we're doing that on their behalf. Like I said, kind of like a talent agent. I really see it that way. The final thing that we do is we have a course, and we're going to build this out where we take sort of earlier career people. At the moment, it's earlier career, kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 years into their career, maybe a little bit longer. And we put them through a 12-week specific training program. And then once they're through that training program, we then go and sell them in as, look, they're good and they've got these very specific skills. In reality, the training program is less about the technical skills, although they do learn good stuff. But it's more about, if we've been with them full time for 12 weeks, we know exactly what their skills are, what sort of role would suit them, and then we can just place them better. For that reason, we're going to do more of these kind of training programs, some full-time, some part-time, just so we can kind of really get those people and learn about them so we can place them properly.
That is great. That's much better than interviewing someone for 1 hour and deciding if they're a good fit.
Yeah, which is really hard, isn't it?
but so widespread. It's this. I have a question about the training. Is it face-to-face, in-person, co-located? Is it hybrid? Is it a mixture of online? What does it look like?
So at the moment, it's 12 weeks, full-time, hybrid. So they come to the office in Cape Town, I think 2 days a week, and then they spend 3 days a week doing that from home. We have a full-time program manager that's with them in person, but then the people that are doing the training are actually from a partner company called Authority Hacker. They're SEO training specialists. They have courses and they do online stuff, and they actually do webinars with them and just kind of take them through the content in that way.
Oh, nice. So there's a real experiential together, a bit more culture specific, as in culture to your organization. And then you've got the technical things, which another company is brought in to do, and that's delivered in a different way as well. Yeah, that's really good as well. It's a really good use of your resources and other people coming in and delivering the technical bit. Let's go then. Finding this very interesting. Just one question. The roles that you're looking for them or that are coming through, are they part-time, full-time, freelance, or is it a mix?
Yeah, it's actually quite a mix. Yeah, there's kind of all those three. And it's probably split 33% across the three. We do some full-time. We do some part-time, half-time, or sometimes a quarter time, although we don't do a ton of that. And then we actually just get a lot of requests for freelance, particularly marketing agencies that, they've got projects or they just want to flex things up and down. And initially we were our whole model was we place someone in your business full time and, they work for us, but actually it feels like your employee. But the market is also just really kind of coming to us with this freelance side of things as well, for obvious reasons. And I know myself from having an agency, just the importance of that freelance. And there's a lot of people in South Africa that kind of suits because, they've either got a full-time job and they just want to do a few days on the side for extra income, or they're set up as a freelancer and they do 2 days here, 3 days here. So yeah, it's a mix of all of those.
I can see how the freelance and part-time options, being part of a community and with somewhere where the work is rolling in and out, I think that's very, very attractive. I had another question, but I don't know what it was, and it would take us off on another tangent. So let's go back to when someone joins you then. What does that look like? I mean, you mentioned community. They've got an office that they can go to. How does that work?
There's a few things. So there is a physical office that they can go to any day, which is in like the centre of Cape Town, which is, there's parking. It's easy to get to. It's a really nice office. It accommodates like 50 or 60 people. So they've always got that. There's the Slack community where they can go on, and that works from a kind of social perspective. So they have like quizzes and gift wars and that kind of stuff in there. And then they do some like in-person events. So we go to a gallery or, walking down the promenade, that kind of thing. But there's also quite a key like professional element to it. So they have peer support. So let's just say you're a graphic designer and you're trying to solve a problem. There's probably another graphic designer in the community that you can talk to. That definitely helps. They also help each other with, somebody more senior might have a junior role and there's a freelancer here, and, they can kind of use it for resourcing a little bit. That doesn't happen a ton, but it does happen. But also we're here to help them. So there's about 10 people in the Marketing Pros team, some of them, with varying degrees of experience, but we'll often sit with them and talk them through either a work problem, if we can help. Sometimes we can. If it's like, a HubSpot developer, then we probably can't. But if it's, content, we've got some really good people that can help. But also if it's just like a human problem, we help a lot with that. So, somebody is, they've got a problem in their family, they need some time off, or then the role isn't quite what they expected, and the company's asking them to work kind of weird hours and they don't like it. Like, we're often just sort of the intermediary between the international company and the person on the ground, just to try and make that work. And often we'll fix it. So the company, in the US just had no idea there was an issue. We're hearing that on the ground because they're comfortable coming to us, and we kind of solve that. There's a lot of kind of salary stuff as well. Someone's been there 6 months, 12 months, they feel like they should earn a bit more, or bonus issue. And we'll just kind of help people work through all of that, and our job is to just kind of help both parties succeed. And the final bit is just all the compliance stuff, like we do their taxes, and they're employed by us, like they're technically employed. They're on a local contract. So we often help, they need a letter to get a car loan or whatever. We'll help them with that kind of stuff.
Actually, that was my question, the technical one about employment. So basically, the companies people are working for actually hire you, Marketing Pros, and then the people in the ground are your employees or your contractors sometimes?
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're the employer of record. So they have an employment contract with us, the entity in South Africa, and then the client has like an SLA with the UK kind of holding company, which has just got like 30-day terms or whatever. So for them, they get all of the benefits of having a full-time employee, but they don't have to deal with any of the kind of compliance issues or risks. And those risks are fairly significant in South Africa. Like, there's some pretty employee-centered like legislation that, you can get taken to court for all kinds of stuff. So that's great because our clients don't need to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah, that is really, really key, because this is, of course, something that it's always been the case, but now, of course, it's a more visible problem, is that it's great to say you can hire from anywhere, but actually you can't. You can and you can't, but so you solve a wonderful problem there, because sometimes I think that's what putting people off, especially from getting full-time employees in other countries, is that it's a nightmare.
Yeah, to do it properly. And a lot of companies will do workarounds with like international contractors and that kind of thing, which I think there are platforms that do a decent job of that. So I don't want to say it's not a good solution. What we have found is, though, the very best people don't want these hacky compromisers. That they generally want to be in a career, they want to be moving forward, and they want to feel like, because the contract, it just feels more permanent. It feels like a better step. And so if you're just a random international contract, they can switch you off tomorrow. Fine for a lot of people, but the really good people, the people you want, they're not loving that. And they certainly don't want that long term.
Yeah. Nice. So I want to go back to something you were saying about how you're also there. You're basically there for your people as their employer, as in your mentoring, you're maybe coaching, all of these things. What do you do to help people feel comfortable coming to you, or do you openly offer help? How does that work to start to build that openness with them, or that they can feel like they can come to you?
I think some of it is just, just being in the middle, being a kind of intermediary a little bit. I think naturally lends itself to they feel comfortable coming to you rather than going to the employer. Mm-hmm. But we do spend a lot of time through the community and through building relationships. Like, we always speak to them. We try to meet them where possible, and we try to engage them in events and engage them in the community. So they feel like we're on their side because of the way we've onboarded them, because of all the stuff they've got access to. And because the way that we've kind of treated them through the recruitment process, we really try to make sure they have a good experience when they're kind of going for these jobs, because not always easy. Like, we often have a client that will seem like a really great client. We put people in front of them, whatever, and then they just kind of, they change their mind, or they kind of go quiet on the process. And that used to happen tons and tons. Yeah. But now we really vet on the client side. Like, is this a good company to work for? Have they got a good opportunity? Is this going to be a good career fit for them? And making sure that their experience through that process is good. Like, it is hard because you just, until you've worked with a company for a few placements, you never know. But we always we're focused not just on getting the placement done and that's it. We're focused on the whole experience being good for them, because our hypothesis is, like, they're the talent, they're the shortage, mm-hmm. which is true. It doesn't feel like that to them necessarily because of where they're based particularly, but it is completely true. And, we need to look after their career, because if we can't do that, they'll go somewhere else. So they're really our clients as well. So that's how we see it. And that's how the whole kind of culture of the organization is.
That's really good. We're wishing that more organizations treated their employees like that. I know, if not, like you say, if you don't have them, you don't have a business. So that also makes complete business sense as well as a people sense. So one last question before we move on to if there's anything that you would like to say or talk about is, so how about the clients? Because the clients are also remote, I imagine, to you. How do you keep those relationships? How do you develop you as in your team, however it works? How do you work with them?
Yeah, they are remote to us. Most of them are, I would say about 70% are probably in the US as well. And we have one team member in the US. So if there's there's a challenge there. I think, again, what the clients feel like is that we're like a long-term partner, that we try to understand their business and we try to understand what they're trying to achieve and what success looks like for them. And because the people in our business, or the people that deal with the clients anyway, have marketing backgrounds, myself being one of them. I deal with a lot of our agency clients, so I know, like, I get all of the problems that they're having from a kind of resourcing perspective. Yeah, we just advise them a little bit on, look, have you thought about resourcing it in this way? And we'll go to them with suggestions. So, for example, I was chatting to a company in the US yesterday who I know use a lot of freelance kind of content writers, and I know that we've got some really, really good content writers that could come and go and be full-time, probably not save you any money, but having somebody in-house, like, I know the benefits of that, and I can kind of speak to that side of things. So most of it is just understanding. It's not so much the softer relationship, get to know people, although that is part of it. It's more really trying to understand their business, understanding what they're trying to achieve, and then layering our service into that in the best way. And often we're not the best, not often, but sometimes we're not the best solution, and that's fine. But I think the way that we build those relationships is we understand the business and we're sort of proactive about trying to help them. Great.
So I'm just going to have a look and see if there's anything else in my notes that I wanted to ask you, but I think that's it from me, because I actually, one last question, something that did come up. Why do you think the people come into the office, or what do you think they might like about coming to the office, your community, your people?
The office space is nice. It's like it was one of those kind of shared office spaces, and it's kind of been repurposed. So I think there's an element of, and it's generally like the feeling there is really nice. There's a lot of people there. for Calium specifically, for my agency, we do a lot of things like we have free lunches, we pay for people's coffees, we have like nice parking, all of that, which in a city is important. But I think people just come in for a little bit of just a change of scenery. Definitely some people come in, prefer it more than others. Some people come in less, but it's just there as a kind of change of scenery. And I would say, we do try to do things like there's booths where you can do calls. So we spend a lot of time thinking about the booking process and how you can make sure you get a booth at the right time and need it. And they can take their dogs in, all those kind of things that just, we're just trying to make people's lives that little bit nicer. So anyone that lives close within 25-minute drive generally goes in. There are people that live an hour and a half away that go in a lot less. And, that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's a really important hub of the community, actually.
I think it's such a 21st century work-life setup for me. There's people in a country who probably want to stay in that country, but the work is not there, so they've got access to work outside of the country. There is the opportunity to go and work in an office if you want to, and if it makes you happy, there's an opportunity to go in there less. It's good to have a hub where people can go to, but it's also good for me to give them that flexibility so that it's not a mandatory thing when it's not necessary. Yeah,
exactly.
Good. So Doug, is there anything else before we tell our listeners where to go and look at where to find out more about both companies? Is there anything else you'd like to say about?
Well, just to say that I appreciate the kind of genuine interest and the questions. It's been really great to kind of go through this with you. Yeah, from a who should reach out, I think if anyone's looking for talent in their business, they're open to remote and they just want to explore what we could do in South Africa, please feel free to reach out. Just, you can send me an email directly. That's no problem. And we normally start by just talking about what you're looking for. And I can give you quite a clear indication straight away on what that's going to cost as well. So, you'll have all the information you need to decide if that's something that people want to do.
Let's give listeners, I won't put it in the show notes because I don't like putting emails online, but what is your email address?
You can reach me directly at doug@marketingpros.co. Also, Doug Haynes on tin as well. You'll find me there.
Well, Doug Haynes, thank you very, very, very much. Listeners, you can go over to marketingpros.co to find out even more. You can read the full story as well. Really interesting. So, Doug, thank you very much for stepping in here.
Thanks for having me, Pil. I really enjoyed it.
A big thank you for listening to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. We know there are many other shows for you to choose from. Remember to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, and you can check out the full show notes over at virtualnotdistant.com/podcasts. Talking of podcasts, we have another show you can listen to, Management Cafe, which you should also be able to find on all podcast apps. I have been Pilar Orti. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, enjoy.